Pasito tum tum, pasito tum tum, pasito tum tum.
Is originality dead? Okay, I know I'm very late asking this question for almost 2 months now, but it still needs to be asked. With the release of the new remake to one of the most beloved animated classics, The Lion King has made us wonder, what is the purpose of remakes? Why can't Disney do something original? Why can't they stop remaking our beloved classics? Well, it's funny because remakes have long before existed before the creation of Hollywood. Classical music, mythologies, and plays were often remade long before the invention of motion picture. And even when films were at their prime, they still had their own share of remakes, from biblical epics to the Monster Universe, Scarface, King Kong, A Star is Born, Japanese films remade to an American audience, you name it. But what most of these well-known remakes have in common is as much as they have the same story, each adaptation has its own unique way to interpret it based on how it fits to their social climate, which makes the film stand out on their own. So join me in the circle of remakes as I ask the question, is originality dead? Better late than never. There is a saying that there's only 7 stories that we can tell in movies. How many times have you seen the hero's journey, the overcoming the odds story, the rise and fall, the Romeo and Juliet romance? Several times. But what matters is not how many times you've seen it, is how differently do they show it, where the message is differently from the first one. The Lion King is also considered to be about the hero's journey, but I would add that it's also about the tyrant getting power.
I will be king.
That's when the villain plots to overthrow the righteous leader and take over as the new dictator, leading up to the hero fighting to reclaim his power back. It's not a unique story since it borrows from Hamlet, a much older tale in terms of centuries. Both stories take place in a kingdom. There's an evil uncle who wants to take over the throne. The evil uncle kills his brother to become king. The prince gets a vision of his dead father to confront his evil uncle. The Lion King is technically not a remake of Hamlet, but it sure looks familiar to the story and the characters. This is the same way that stories can inspire other stories to update them, making them even much more timeless. And recently, the story of the villain getting power has become more popular. In Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, evil Koba attempts to kill the righteous leader Caesar and take over.
Apes follow Koba now.
Black Panther follows the same plot when Killmonger defeats Black Panther and takes over the throne.
Nah, I'm your king.
Aquaman does the same, a little different, but similar enough to tell.
I am the one true king.
Star Wars has the evil emperor being the Senate.
I am the Senate.
Even the new Godzilla has a tyrant monster taking over as the new king of monsters. All of these could be considered as remakes or inspiration based on another story, but here's why they work individually. They don't try to copy one another. Sure, they all have the same aftermath of the hero defeating the tyrant, but they build different worlds, different dilemmas, and different messages to stand out as their own unique work. Godzilla is also about the misuse of nuclear weapons, Black Panther is also about racism, Aquaman about pollution, Planet of the Apes about survival, and Star Wars can be about
I am the Senate.
that. And just like that, Hamlet is also a tragic tale about betrayal, family dysfunction, the fear of trusting even those that are closer to you. And The Lion King is about embracing the bad things that will happen to us and take responsibility when it does. It's very simple. The Lion King is the circle of life, Hamlet is the circle of die! Seriously, everyone dies here. Just put them all together in a circle and stabbing each other with a dagger and that's Hamlet! So basically, remakes are not the problem. The problem is the lack of originality. Kimba the White Lion! One of the controversies that the classic Lion King has faced before, besides Simba wanting to get laid, was their accusation over plagiarizing another work from Japan. Now raise your hands, how many of you have heard of Kimba, the White Lion? No? For those of you who don't know, Kimba the White Lion, also known as the Jungle Emperor Leo, is a Japanese anime show from the 60s, later re-released in the 80s based on a manga comic from the 50s by Osamu Tezuka, often referred as the Japanese version of Disney. When it was announced in the late 80s they were making a movie about Kimba in the Jungle Emperor Leo, Disney coincidentally released something a little similar to Kimba. Maybe too similar, without giving any credit to the original creators like Tezuka. Now, it's not a new thing for Disney to base off their movies from other sources, whether it's fairy tales, mythology, literature, legends, and history, but it is a little strange that they kept quiet for so long about Kimba, even when most of the artists, actors, and directors knew the material of Kimba very well. If you look at their behind the scenes, they show what inspired them for the Lion King story, Hamlet, Moses, and Bambi, but not a single mention of Kimba. So, is it a ripoff as everyone says? Yes and no. When it comes to the cinematography, it is a visual copy. In fact, it plagiarizes the anime show a lot more than the movie. But story-wise, they're polar opposite. Kimba is a cautionary tale about man versus nature. It's an environmental message of man destroying nature for greed. Some of the characters may look very similar, or maybe even rhyme, like Kimba and Simba. But I feel there is enough distinction from both their art style and themes to look individually unique. And the whole reason Tezuka did not sue Disney out of copyright was out of fear of being bankrupt by this powerful company. So, whether you strongly feel sympathy over Tezuka for how scummy Disney acted, that is all up to you, but I can make a small argument they're at least different enough to look distinguishable. If I were to have an issue with remakes or adaptations, it's when they have nothing new to say that the original hasn't said already. The same problem Psycho had when it was remade frame by frame, line by line, adding nothing new to what made Norman Bates into a great villain. The same problem the new Lion King has with its frame by frame, line by line remake of the original. Forget the fact that the movie feels soulless as everyone says, or the animals looking bland. It is the fact they add nothing new that expands the story and the characters. The Simba and Nala romance feels pointless, we know nothing more about Scar than we already know. There goes a wasted opportunity to expand the complicated relationship between Mufasa and Scar, and yet the numbers say we are okay with it. So you can assure not to expect these live action remakes to go anytime soon. The effort that both Lion Kings place in their movies are very distinguishable. The remake is focused on having realistic special effects with a recycled story. The original is focused on having the biggest, massive, colorful, mature story ever made in Disney, and also save the animators' jobs that were on the line. The effects may look impressive for a bit, but then it wears off because over the years we have become familiarized with these effects. The original still leaves an impression for its message, its colors, its highly mature talks about life, power, and responsibility in a deep discussional way.
The past can't hurt, but the way I see it, you can either run from it or learn from it.
The first half of the movie is about the villain's journey to power, while the second half is about the hero's journey to regain that power back. The difference between Simba and Scar is how knowledgeable they are about being a leader. Simba was taught at a young age how to be a responsible king, the circle of life if you will. It represents the infinite nature of energy, meaning if something dies, it gives new life to another being. For Simba, it's very crucial to learn that he can't go around killing anything that moves in his path like a sport. He must show respect to the animals that live near him. Killing is only acceptable when requiring food for the lions, with the understanding that one day they will get back to the herbivores. Scar never learned any of these lessons. His motivation for power comes out of selfish reasons rather than having a vision for the greater good of his pride. It could be out of jealousy over living in the shadows of his kingly brother Mufasa. Maybe he was promised a kingly spot but then was shattered by the birth of his nephew.
Well, I was first in line, until the little hairball was born.
He only wants power to show off his superiority over his brother when he kills him. His aftermath brings famine to the land because he lacks any leadership skills to respect nature and the animals living with him. Mufasa's death was a tragedy disguised as a blessing for Simba. At first he started out as a cocky, spoiled prince who craved power and shared the same beliefs as Scar when it comes to power.
But I thought a king can do whatever he wants.
I am the king. I can do whatever I want.
Let's say if Mufasa would have lived a longer life and Simba would have been crowned king after Mufasa's death, maybe he might have taken those kingly lessons for granted. Maybe he would have turned out to be as reckless and selfish of a king as Scar was, maybe even worse. He needed to be humbled, know what it feels like to have no desire for power.
No, I'm not the king. Maybe I was gonna be, but that was a long time ago.
So he can later witness that power being misused is a sensitive thing that can lead to severe consequences. This is what I got from the first Lion King, something I would have never gotten with this one. I wouldn't have gotten how arrogant Simba was with his emotionless expression. I wouldn't have gotten how wise Mufasa is with that tired voice. And as a whole, I wouldn't have gotten how much depth from it there is if it wasn't for the original. So in conclusion, originality is not dead. It's just too hard to find something original that is marketable enough. If it's too new, then it's too risque to trust it will make any money. It could have been too risque to make a Lion King that is too different from the one we are familiar with. In the end, it exists, you can't erase it, it's not the end of the world. If you don't want to support it, then don't watch it. If you want to support the classic, then keep watching it. It still has a great story, great animation, an epic massiveness, and it's one of my favorite animated films. Celebrate it for how it got inspired by other classics, rip it off for how bluntly of a rip-off the Kimba is. Regardless, if the story is good, then why complain? You know, the circle of life may work well and all with animals, but when it comes to humans, if you put it in terms of poor people and rich people, it does sound kind of heavy. I mean, how would a rich person explain that to their own children?
But Dad, don't we take advantage of the poor people? Yes, son, but let me explain. When we die, our body becomes the dust, because that's it, that's how it is. And the poor people eat the dust, because they have nothing else to eat, so they have to eat dust, dirt. And so, we are all connected in the great circle of life.
You know, the more I think about it, circle of life is actually shit. So if you were wondering where have I been all this time, I've been feeling a little rusty since then, since I got a new job and it has taken a toll on me. But I'm back, I'm still gonna make content, I'm not going anywhere, so... So, what do you thought of the new Lion King? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Leave your thoughts on the comment section to see what you thought about it. And if you like this video, leave a like and subscribe for more content. Well guys, tune in next time for more reviews to come. So for now, that's it for today. Ciao.
Pasito tum tum, pasito tum tum.